East Sussex is an area with a long and storied past. Many of its buildings, its towns, its villages have been here for centuries. And in that time, legends and stories have grown. Throughout this series, we're going to collect some of those stories together. We won't be hunting ghosts or asking, is anybody there? Instead, we'll be focusing on something more tangible. The people of today who are impacted by these strange occurrences. The keepers of these legends. Who were the people whose lives took such dramatic turns and that now seem bound to haunt these places and buildings? I'm Jason Mannix, and this is Ghost Stories Uncovered. Tonight, we're visiting one of Brighton's most historic and iconic landmarks, a venue that's brought entertainment, joy and laughter to audiences for well over 100 years. And one of its most iconic residents, a person with a fascinating story of survival and drive at a time when all the odds were against her, still likes to make her presence known. Welcome to the Theatre Royal Brighton. Sussex has long been a hub for creatives and the arts. Brighton in particular has long been at the forefront of live performances on the south coast. Brighton's first permanent theatre opened on North Street in 1774. Unfortunately, due to poor attendance, it closed its doors around 1789. The licence was then transferred to a new venue, which opened on Duke Street in 1790. Shortly after, owner Hewitt Cobb and manager John Brunton decided to invest in a new performance venue on New Road. The then Prince of Wales, later George IV, approved of the plans for a new theatre and granted its first royal patronage. Since its establishment, the Theatre Royal has received many visits from members of the British royal family, including Queen Victoria and Prince Albert in 1845, Queen Mary in 1893, and the late Queen Elizabeth II, who first visited the theatre in 1959 and continued to do so on several occasions. In recent years, employees and members of visiting production companies have often said that they've sensed, or sometimes seen, an extra pair of eyes watching from the shadows. Well, first of all, Jackie, thank you so much for letting us come to the Theatre Royal today and to film in these beautiful premises.
You're very welcome. Welcome to the stage.
Thank you. How long have you worked here?
I've worked here now for about 13 years in various capacities, but the last 10 years I've been the creative learning manager here. So my job is bringing people into the theatre who perhaps haven't been before, or encouraging them to come back if they came as a child.
Yeah.
I sort of look after the history of the building. It's a particular interest of mine anyway, but also I feel it's really important to keep that going and to hand those stories down to people so that they keep that knowledge. And obviously theatre is all about telling stories. So there's stories that have been handed down. I mean, we've got so many stories from different people about the building and the people in it.
Now, I know they say that theatres retain their history. What's your view of that?
Well, I think this theatre particularly retains its history. It's 218 years old, and in the walls of the theatre, there are stories. There's stories from thousands of people who've been audience members or performers or backstage crew or people who've worked front of house selling drinks. There's something about the atmosphere in the building that you can feel those people. And the theatre's for joyful things. People come and have a joyful time. So that it very much has that feeling.
Even at the backstage, as we sort of wandered around today, it does have an atmosphere, but to my mind, it feels a very friendly one.
Oh, it is, I think. I mean, it's a very friendly environment anyway, I think, theatre, on the whole. It's a very accepting, open, welcoming place for people who work in theatre as well as audiences. And I think, therefore, that there is something about when I bring young people into the theatre and show them, they do have quite a strong response to the positivity in the building.
And on the almost the reverse of that, there are quite a few spooky stories about various parts of the theatre. Can you tell us about some of those?
Yes, well, all theatres have ghosts.
All theatres apparently have grey ladies.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Oh.
it's very common. I mean, ours obviously is the most famous grey lady, I think. But yeah, I suppose it's because theatres are places of superstition. Actors are notoriously superstitious, and there's so many things in theatrical history which are based on superstitions, like not being allowed to whistle on the stage, not being able to talk about the Scottish play, things like that. And there's just superstitions that surround theatre. I suppose maybe as well because actors are more open to receiving things, to feeling things. And so, yes, there are stories of sightings of ghosts within our walls.
Are there any particular ones that sort of resonate with you?
We have got a grey lady, and our grey lady is Ellen Nye Chart, who was the manager here. She married the manager here, Henry Nye Chart, in 1867, and when he died, she ran the theatre herself, single-handedly, and she was quite an extraordinary person. And the reason the theatre is still here is because of Ellen.
Ellen Rollinson was born in Islington in London in 1839. Very few records exist to tell us anything about her early life. It's estimated that Ellen made her move to Brighton in 1865, age 26. And once here, she joined the resident production company at the Theatre Royal.
At that time, the theatre's busiest period was its summer season, attracting wealthy visitors and the upper classes from London to the rapidly growing town of Brighton.
Ellen established herself as an integral part of the company and soon became a popular figure around Brighton.
Shortly after her arrival, she fell in love with actor turned theatre manager Henry Nye Chart. In 1866, Henry commissioned the respected theatre architect C.J. Phipps to expand upon the original building, transforming it into the venue we all know and love today.
Ellen and Henry were married in 1867, and they managed the theatre together for 9 years until, in 1876, Henry sadly passed away. At 35, Ellen was now a widow and a single mother, but she was determined to carry on the hard work that her and her husband had started.
Instead of retiring into the background of society, which was often the norm for widows at that time, she decided to take control and become sole proprietor of the Theatre Royal.
For the next 2 years, Ellen managed the theatre and acted as one of the cast members in many of the productions, until, on the 9th of April, 1879, Ellen gave her final performance.
2 farewell performances were announced, but the competition to obtain tickets was so fierce that a third night had to be added.
With a final curtain call completed, Ellen could focus on the day-to-day business of managing and running the successful theatre.
It was under her management that the Theatre Royal expanded its programme, developing into a major centre for entertainment in Brighton.
During her tenure, Ellen introduced an all-year-round programme for the theatre, thus allowing performances to be appreciated and seen by local people around Brighton and the local villagers, not just by the visiting gentry.
Stars of the era, including Lily Langtry, Sarah Bernhard, Charles Wyndham, and Henry Irving, began appearing on stage more frequently.
She also introduced flying matinees, productions from the West End in London that would come down to perform here during the day and then return in the evening to perform back in the West End.
If that wasn't enough, Ellen invested heavily in the theatre's annual pantomime, making it more elaborate and turning it into the most profitable production of the Theatre Royal's yearly season.
Wanting to make performances more accessible, Ellen would invite both the staff and the inmates from the local workhouses to come and see the pantomime performances for free.
In 1888, the Brighton workhouse presented Ellen with an illuminated address, a richly decorated document thanking her for her kindness and generosity.
Throughout her time as sole proprietor, Ellen managed to achieve in Brighton what was thought could only be achieved in the London theatres.
Ellen had paid off the £6,000 mortgage on the Theatre Royal, the equivalent roughly of £1 million today. She also paid off the £1,600 mortgage on her home next door to the theatre, and that was the equivalent of £250,000 today.
Each year, at the end of that pantomime's run, Ellen would always come out and give a speech on the stage. It was always met with enthusiasm and applause. In 1891, Ellen fell seriously ill, but she recovered. However, the following year, she had a relapse. And on the 23rd of February, 1892, Ellen passed away.
She was only 52 years of age.
Since her passing, there have been many reported sightings of Ellen around various parts of the theatre. Most notably here in the Royal Circle, in seat G16.
Legend has it that this very seat was Ellen's favourite spot, and over the years, there have been many stories surrounding this area.
Audience members have reportedly seen the seat lower itself before some performances. And other audience members sat around the seat, or those brave enough to sit in it, have often said that they felt a chill during the course of a performance. Even members of visiting production companies have alleged that they've seen a Victorian lady dressed in grey sat in G16. Could it be that Ellen comes back from time to time to oversee these production companies working in her theatre?
There are quite a few stories of people who have seen Ellen or felt Ellen's presence in the theatre. I feel that she probably is a regular visitor to make sure we're still doing everything we're supposed to be doing and making sure that we're protecting and looking after the building and keeping it going.
And how do the team feel? For example, if any of them are doing night shifts, does it resonate particularly with them then?
It's interesting because, so our front of house team, a lot of them come in and say good evening and good night to Mrs. Nye Chart in the seat that she's supposed to sit in the Royal Circle. Theatres are quite spooky at night anyway, especially if they're empty, if there's no audience in them. So if people are working on stage doing overnighters and technical things, there are people who have had experiences. And the building creaks, and who knows what those creaks are. You know, it's 218 years old, anything could happen.
And in 13 years, have you experienced anything or felt anything?
The only thing I've had is sometimes there's a room off the Royal Circle bar, which I found out recently was part of the hotel, which the Colonnade Bar is, at one time was a hotel. And I have smelt cigar smoke quite strongly in that room in the past. And I know other people who have as well.
Yeah.
And one of our previous managers said that they had smelt it quite often. And so that, we think, is perhaps a gentleman who was staying in the Colonnade Hotel. And that's where that comes from. But I have never, I've never seen or felt Mrs. Nye Chart. I feel that she's here, but that's more because I think she's the guardian of the theatre. Yeah. But other colleagues have, but I haven't.
Oh, so you've worked with teams and colleagues
Yes.
who've experienced something?
Well, where our office is what was Mr. and Mrs. Nye Chart's bedrooms.
Ah.
So the Royal Circle Bar was their house. When they got married, that was a house that they bought and lived in. And when Ellen died, she left it to the theatre. And the Royal Circle Bar was her drawing room. A door off of that, which leads up to what were the bedrooms, which are now the marketing and front of house and creative learning office. There's one of my colleagues who definitely in her office has felt a bit of a cold presence and a feeling that somebody is there. We think is probably Ellen, looking over her shoulder, making sure she's doing the sums right.
Managing the place still.
Yes.
For all this time.
Yes. I know that there was a child who saw Mrs. Nye Chart. We've got a story of a child who was in one of the boxes and looked across and saw a Victorian lady sitting in the box watching the show. The father of the child thought perhaps it was a special historical thing we were doing, and we weren't. Yeah. So that was probably Ellen.
Yeah.
She particularly looked after children and young people and made sure that they also had access to the theatre through pantomime and special performances for the inmates of the workhouse up on Elm Grove and for the children. So she had an affinity, I think, with children and young people.
The Grey Lady was also seen up here in the gallery by two technicians who were installing lighting down on the stage.
The job required them to work through the night, so the new equipment would be ready for use the following day.
Unaware that the theatre had its own resident ghost, the two technicians were very surprised to have seen that lady in the early hours of the morning. She was said to be wearing an old-fashioned grey dress and was walking towards the bar before she disappeared behind a curtain. Another sighting of the Grey Lady was in the Colonnade Bar next to the main entrance to the theatre.
On a quiet day in 1976, the supervisor had just opened the bar, ready for the day's rush of customers and audience members.
As they were going about their duties, they were startled to see a grey lady in Victorian clothes sat quietly in the corner.
She was said to have been wearing a grey chiffon dress and was in no way frightening or threatening.
The old lady smiled and simply vanished.
The Grey Lady was also sighted in the theatre's wardrobe.
A crew member from a visiting production company was busy preparing costumes for a morning rehearsal.
Suddenly, they were distracted by a banging sound coming from the door in the corridor outside.
Annoyed by the sound, the crew member immediately stopped the task in hand and went to investigate the noise. They approached the banging door and tried to push it shut. Taking a different approach, the crew member opened the door to be met by a grey lady. The crew member said that the Grey Lady was about 5'6", between 50 and 60 years old, and wearing a veil.
They also stated that they had the immediate feeling it was a dead person. She had silvery hair and a commanding presence.
Frozen, unable to move, the crew member stood there as the apparition pushed past and carried on walking and could be seen for about a minute. Unfortunately, due to the veil, it's unclear whether the apparition was Ellen or possibly a fleeting visit from the actress Sarah Bernhardt.
Sarah Bernhardt was a celebrated French actress, widely regarded as one of the world's first true celebrities.
During a performance in 1894, she suffered an accident on stage and caused a serious injury to her leg.
The injury is believed to have been one of the factors that eventually led to her leg being amputated above the knee.
At the time of the injury, during a performance of La Tosca, Sarah was 50 years old. Could this be the identity of the veiled lady that was seen in the wardrobe? It's fair to say that Ellen's passing was a shock, not just to the residents of Brighton, but to the members of London's theatre world.
Her funeral was the largest the town had ever seen, with residents lining the streets to pay their respects.
But for many, it was also a time and an opportunity to say thank you to a wonderful woman who had helped so many people.
The Brighton Herald paid tribute by saying that so busy and bustling a spirit should have been extinguished at so early an age is a source of deep regret.
Because these documentaries have a wide reach and a wide audience, and you talk about the fact that you particularly responsible for getting the word out, particularly for younger people as well. Is there anything that you'd like to say to younger people who may be, from watching this, interested in coming to see the theatre and to see the location of the programme that they're just watching? What are they going to encounter and see when they get here?
Oh, wow. I would encourage anybody to come and have a look at the theatre because it is beautiful. And I think when you come and see a show here, it's a fantastic experience. I think theatre is a great experience because of it being a shared experience. You're seeing something live. It's different every time. But also we do tours and things like that. And I think it's amazing to see the theatre with all of the glitz stripped away. I would say come along and see the theatre and also see if you can see Ellen. She might be there.
Yes, a very good point.
Yes.
Oh, thank you so much. Ellen Nye Chart, no doubt, had an incredible impact on Brighton, not only in highlighting it as a source of both art and culture, but also in its growing presence as a leading tourist destination. From humble London beginnings, Ellen became one of Brighton's most loved residents and formidable business figure. This year, Ellen will be forever remembered, and the Theatre Royal receives a blue plaque in her honour. Join us next time when we uncover another haunting tale from the shadows of Sussex.